Do you ever feel like you're playing a game, but you don't know the rules? That's what money can feel like. You see some people who are brilliant, with fancy degrees and high-paying jobs, and they end up broke. And then you hear these quiet stories about regular people, like a janitor or a secretary, who somehow build a fortune. It doesn't make sense. It can make you feel stressed, confused, and maybe even a little behind, like you're missing some secret that everyone else knows. Well, what if I told you the secret isn't about being smart? What if I told you that getting good with money has almost nothing to do with how good you are at math and everything to do with how you behave? That's the life-changing idea in a book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And you know what's crazy? Once you see the world this way, you can never unsee it. This book completely changed how I think about my own finances, and I promise it can do the same for you. So if you get any value from this today, a quick like and subscribe would be amazing. It really helps the channel grow. Today, we're going to dive deep into some of the most powerful ideas from this book. We'll talk about the real difference between being rich and being wealthy, and I promise you, they are not the same thing. We'll also explore the incredible power of compounding and the single biggest reason most people never let it work for them. And you absolutely have to watch until the end. Reading about this stuff is one thing, but applying it is where the magic happens. So at the end of this video, I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you, step by step, exactly how I personally use the principles from this book to manage my own family's finances. I'll show you how we save, how we invest, and the simple framework we use to feel in complete control of our money without any of the usual stress. This is the practical payoff that will make these ideas real for you. The biggest secret: your behavior matters more than your brain. The book starts with two stories that perfectly set the stage. It's the story of two men, Ronald Read and Richard Foscone. Richard Foscone was the kind of guy you'd expect to be great with money. He went to Harvard. He had an MBA. He was a high-level executive at Merrill Lynch, a huge finance company. He was so successful that he retired in his 40s to become a philanthropist. He had an 18,000 square foot mansion with 11 bathrooms, 2 elevators, 2 pools, and 7 garages. It cost him over $90,000 a month just to maintain it. This guy was the definition of financial success. Then there's Ronald Read. Ronald was a janitor. He fixed cars at a gas station for 25 years and swept floors at a JCPenney for 17 years. He bought a small 2-bedroom house and lived there his whole life. His main hobby was chopping firewood. He was a simple man with no financial training, no fancy degree, and no connections. Now, here's where the story gets wild. In the 2008 financial crisis, Richard Foscone's world fell apart. His high debts and risky assets were wiped out. He went bankrupt. The man with the Harvard MBA and the massive mansion told a judge, "I currently have no income." His home was sold at a foreclosure auction for a fraction of its value. A few months later, Ronald Read, the janitor, died at age 92. And this humble man made international news. Why? Because this janitor, who nobody paid any attention to, had a secret. He had saved the little money he earned, invested it in good, solid companies, and then he just waited. For decades. His small savings compounded into more than $8 million. He left millions of dollars to his local hospital and library. How is this possible? How can a janitor become a multi-millionaire philanthropist while a Harvard-educated finance executive goes broke. This is the central idea of the entire book. Financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill, where how you behave is more important than what you know. Morgan Housel writes that finance is taught like it's math, with formulas and rules. But in the real world, you don't make money decisions on a spreadsheet. You make them at the dinner table. You make them when you're comparing yourself to your neighbor. You make them when you're afraid, or greedy, or optimistic. Knowing what to do tells you nothing about what happens in your head when you try to do it. Ronald Read succeeded because he had mastered the emotional and behavioral side of money. He was patient. He lived below his means. He didn't need to show off. Richard Fusconi may have been a genius, but he was undone by greed and overconfidence. He had the knowledge, but not the behavior. This is incredible news for us. It means you don't need a fancy degree or a six-figure salary to build wealth. You just need to focus on a few key behaviors. And that's what we're going to break down today. Idea 1. No one is crazy. Have you ever looked at how someone else spends their money and thought, "Are you crazy?" Maybe they buy lottery tickets every week, or they take on a huge car payment, or they invest in something that seems ridiculously risky. Well, here's one of the book's most important ideas. No one is crazy. It might seem crazy to you, but it makes perfect sense to them. Here's why. We all see the world through a different lens. Housel explains that our personal experience with money makes up maybe 0.01% of what's happened in the world, but it makes up about 80% of how we think the world works. Imagine you were born in the 1960s. During your teenage years and your 20s, when you were forming your ideas about money, you saw inflation go crazy. Prices went up all the time. You learned that holding cash was a great way to lose money. That experience is burned into your brain. Now, imagine you were born in 1990. Inflation has been super low your entire life. You've never really thought about it. But you saw the dot-com bubble burst and the 2008 financial crisis. You learned that the stock market can be a terrifying place. These two people can be equally smart, but they will have completely different ideas about how to invest their money. One might be afraid of stocks, the other might be afraid of cash. Neither is crazy. Their decisions are based on their own unique, valid experiences. The person who grew up in poverty thinks about risk in a totally different way than the child of a wealthy banker. The stockbroker who lost everything in the Great Depression has emotional scars that a tech worker from the 1990s can't even imagine. This is so important because it helps us understand our own choices. We are all just the sum of our experiences. It also stops us from judging other people. When you see someone buying a lottery ticket, it's easy to think it's a dumb decision. And maybe, on paper, it is. But Housel offers another perspective. For someone in a low-income household, buying a lottery ticket might be the only time they can hold a tangible dream of a better life, a dream that wealthier people already take for granted. We're not paying for the odds, we're paying for the dream. So the first step in mastering the psychology of money is to understand your own psychology. Where did you learn about money? What were your parents like with it? What big economic events happened when you were young? Understanding your own history helps you understand why you make the decisions you do. And it's the first step to taking control. Idea 2. The difference between rich and wealthy. This next idea completely changed how I see success. We often use the words rich and wealthy to mean the same thing. But Housel argues they are totally different, and not knowing the difference is a major reason why people lose money. Being rich is about your current income. It's visible. When you see someone driving a $100,000 car, you think, wow, that person is rich. They have to have a high income to afford that car. When you see someone living in a giant mansion, they are probably rich. Rich people spend money to show other people how much money they have. But wealth is hidden. Wealth is the income you don't spend. Housel puts it perfectly. Wealth is the nice cars not purchased, the diamonds not bought, the watches not worn. Wealth is financial assets that haven't yet been converted into the stuff you see. This is a huge wow moment. When someone buys a $100,000 car, the only thing you know for sure about their finances is that they have $100,000 less than they did before, or $100,000 more in debt. Being rich is easy to see, but it's wealth that gives you freedom. Think about it this way. Rich is when you spend money. Wealth is when you have money saved up that can earn more money. Wealth gives you options. It gives you freedom. It gives you the ability to wake up one morning and say, I'm not doing this anymore. It gives you the ability to wait for a good opportunity instead of grabbing the first one that comes along. The problem is, it's easy to find rich role models. They're all over Instagram and TV. It's much harder to find wealthy role models because wealth is hidden by definition. Remember Ronald Reed, the janitor? He was incredibly wealthy, but no one knew it because he didn't spend it. He looked like the opposite of rich. So many people say they want to be millionaires, but what they really mean is they want to spend $1 million. And spending $1 million is literally the opposite of being a millionaire. The practical takeaway here is to change your goal. Don't aim to be rich. Aim to be wealthy. Aim to build up financial assets that you don't touch. Because that's what will give you the one thing money can truly buy: control over your own life. Idea 3. The real role of money: buying freedom. So if the goal isn't to buy fancy stuff, what is it? What's the point of being wealthy? The book highlights research from a psychologist named Angus Campbell. He found that the single most powerful factor for happiness is simple. It's not your salary. It's not the size of your house. It's not the prestige of your job. The most powerful common denominator of happiness is having a strong sense of controlling your life. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, is priceless. This is the highest dividend money pays. This really hit me. A small amount of wealth, a small savings account, means you can take a few days off work when you're sick without worrying about bills. That's a huge increase in life control. A bit more wealth means if you lose your job, you can wait for a good one to come along, instead of having to take the first desperate offer. That's life-changing control. 6 months of emergency savings means you're not terrified of your boss, because you know that you have a cushion. That's incredible control. Wealth gives you options, and it buys you time. Using your money to buy time and options has a lifestyle benefit that few luxury goods can compete with. Think about it. We have used our modern wealth to buy bigger and better stuff. The average American home is much bigger than it was in the 1950s. Our cars are faster, our TVs are bigger and cheaper. But what has happened to our time? For many of us, we've given up control over our time. A lot of modern jobs are thinking jobs. We're not on an assembly line where we clock out and go home. Our tool is our brain, and it never leaves us. We're thinking about work on the commute, during dinner, and we wake up stressed at 3 a.m. It feels like we're working 24/7. So even though we are, on average, richer than ever before, we don't feel much happier because we've lost control over our most valuable asset, our time. The goal of wealth is to use it to get that control back, to build up enough savings so that you have the flexibility to design a life you love. That might mean taking a lower-paying job with a shorter commute. It might mean taking more time off. It might mean retiring early. The ultimate goal of wealth is to give you the freedom to choose. Idea 4. The power of compounding and the importance of survival. Okay, so we want to be wealthy to buy our freedom. But how do we actually build that wealth? The book talks about the most powerful force in finance, compounding. You've probably heard of it, but Housel presents it in a way that will blow your mind. He uses the example of Warren Buffett. Everyone knows Buffett is a phenomenal investor. But we miss the real key to his success. It's not just that he's a good investor. It's that he has been a good investor since he was a little kid. Buffett's net worth is around $85 billion, but an incredible $81.5 billion of that came after his 65th birthday. Let's do a quick thought experiment. What if Buffett started investing at age 30, like a normal person, and retired at 60 to play golf? Even if he got the same amazing returns, his net worth would be about $12 million. That's 99.9% less than his actual net worth. His skill is investing, but his secret is time. That's how compounding works. It's like planting an oak tree. A year of growth doesn't show much. 10 years makes a difference. But 50 years creates something extraordinary. But here's the crucial part that most people miss. Compounding only works if you can give an asset years and years to grow without interrupting it. And to do that, you have to survive. You have to survive all the unpredictable ups and downs of the market. This is where the idea of getting wealthy versus staying wealthy comes in. Getting wealthy requires taking risks, being optimistic, and putting yourself out there. But staying wealthy requires the opposite. It requires humility and a fear that what you've made can be taken away just as fast. It requires survival. The book tells the story of Jesse Livermore, one of the greatest stock traders of all time. In the crash of 1929, he made the equivalent of $3 billion in one day by betting the market would fall. He was a genius at getting wealthy. But then, he got overconfident. He made bigger and bigger bets, and eventually, he lost everything. He was great at getting wealthy, but terrible at staying wealthy. Warren Buffett, on the other hand, is a master of staying wealthy. What didn't he do? He didn't get carried away with debt. He didn't panic and sell during the 14 recessions he's lived through. He didn't ruin his reputation. He survived. And his survival allowed him to stay in the game long enough for compounding to work its magic. The takeaway is this: more than you want big returns, you want to be financially unbreakable. If you can stay in the game, you give yourself the chance to let compounding do the heavy lifting for you. This means having a savings cushion, not taking on too much debt, and being able to emotionally handle the wild swings of the market. Survival is the most underrated skill in finance. The personal payoff: how I use this in my own life. Okay, so the theory is one thing, but actually applying it is what really matters. I promised at the beginning that I'd show you exactly how I've been using these ideas in my own life. This isn't financial advice, because as the book says, no one is crazy, and what works for me might not work for you. But this is my personal framework, built on the foundations of the psychology of money. My number one goal for money is not to get rich. It's to achieve what I call independence. I just want to wake up every day knowing my family and I can do whatever we want to do on our own terms. I want to control my time. Every financial decision we make revolves around that single goal. So how do we do it? First, we focus relentlessly on our savings rate. Inspired by the book, my wife and I made a conscious decision when we were young. We found a lifestyle that we were comfortable with. Nothing fancy, just a decent apartment, a reliable car, and good food. And as our incomes have grown over the last decade, we have kept our lifestyle exactly the same. We never upgraded the car. We never moved to a bigger house just because we could. This means that almost every single dollar of every raise we've ever gotten has gone straight into savings. This is what Housel means by managing the gap between your ego and your income. We don't feel like we're sacrificing anything, because our desire for more stuff just stopped. This one habit has been the single biggest driver of our financial independence. Second, we are psychologically reasonable, not coldly rational. A few years ago, we paid off our mortgage completely. On paper, this was a terrible financial decision. Interest rates were super low. Any financial advisor would have told us to invest that money in the stock market to get a higher return. But our goal isn't to maximize every last dollar. Our goal is to sleep well at night. The feeling of owning our home outright, of knowing that no matter what happens in the world, we have a roof over our heads that belongs to us. That feeling of independence is worth more to us than any potential stock market gains. It buys us peace of mind. Third, we hold a lot of cash. Probably around 20% of our financial assets are in cash, not invested. Again, this looks crazy on a spreadsheet. Cash earns nothing. But for us, cash is the oxygen of independence. It's our room for error. It's our guarantee that we will never be forced to sell our investments at a bad time. If we have a huge medical emergency or a job loss, we have a huge cash cushion to handle it. This allows us to be truly long-term investors with the rest of our money, because we know we won't be forced to interrupt our compounding. Finally, our investing strategy is incredibly simple. We invest in low-cost index funds. That's it. We don't try to pick the hot stocks. We don't try to time the market. We just automatically invest a portion of every paycheck and let it ride. My high savings rate is doing the heavy lifting, so I don't need my investments to be heroic. I just need them to do okay over a long period of time. This strategy is simple, it's effective, and most importantly, it lets me get on with my life without worrying about what the market is doing today. Final summary and your turn. So, if we boil everything down, the core message of the psychology of money is this. Managing your money is less about what you know and more about how you behave. It's about defining your own game, building a life with enough room for error to survive the inevitable surprises, and using wealth not to buy more stuff, but to buy back control over your own time. I cannot recommend this book enough. We've only scratched the surface today. If you want to go deeper and see all the incredible stories and examples, please do yourself a favor and buy the book. There's a link in the description. Reading it is one of the best investments you can make in your own financial well-being. And if this video helped you see money in a new way, hit that like button and subscribe for more summaries that give you practical wisdom. And now, I want to hear from you. What's the one idea from today that really stood out to you? Leave a comment below. I read every single one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.